All right, well, looks like we're live. Sorry, folks, we're a little late here. We had some technical difficulties. And as we were just talking with Trisha about Mercury Retrograde, so I think we just experienced a little blip there of that. So that's what was going on. So welcome to our Red Feather Mind, Body, Spirit Facebook Live event. I'm Christopher McClure, and today we have a wonderful guest here. It's Trisha Leigh Shufelt, who is most recently the creator of the Paws Tarot, which is absolutely gorgeous. Just love it. And we're going to talk about this deck and, what the creative process was like going into it and so much about it and why it's so amazing. But a little background on Trisha first. Trisha Leigh Shufelt is a self-taught artist from New England. Paws Tarot is her second full-length tarot deck, and it combines the love of illustration with literary works of Edgar Allan Poe. The first deck, the Heartful Spirits Tarot, was winner of 2 International Tarot Foundation Carta Awards. And Trisha is a Reiki master and a breast cancer survivor. She works in a variety of mediums, and the influence of literary things continues to drive her. And the tarot is a constant inspiration to her. And I'm so glad to have you here. I've been looking forward to this all year. I know
Thank you. Thank you for the wonderful introduction.
That would have been better, actually. Since last year, I've been looking forward to this. So how are you? How are things up there? You're in New England?
Yeah, it's very cold, but we're doing well.
Wonderful. That's great. Well, yeah, so Poe just came in, and as soon as I saw this here, I just I don't know, I fell in love with it. And I've been watching this throughout the process, and it's really just amazing. But what I haven't really known much about really is your tarot journey. I always like to ask creators about their tarot journey. So if you would tell the audience how you got into tarot and what that story is.
Well, I think I started dabbling in it when I was a teenager. I picked up a Morgan Greer deck and liked the imagery, didn't really understand much about it. Back then it was a little taboo. It was like, it was hidden. So I really didn't do much with it. And then I think after the birth of my son, I really started exploring it more. I was kind of had a lot of questions about life, and I went back to the tarot. I started really getting into the different artwork, and that was what was inspiring me, like the different decks and the different artwork. And then I started researching, and it just kind of all went from there. It was just a gradual thing that evolved, and then I created my first deck after going through breast cancer. It was kind of a healing process of creating each card and then diving deep into the really the layers of it to uncover what I was going through emotionally.
Right, exactly. Yeah, so many use just the process. It's interesting how tarot has evolved, and the interest in not just this, but cartomancy in general, divination, all of those aspects, and artists many times are using it in a variety of ways, for self-exploration, as templates, for expression, those kinds of things, So I guess really, what's your take on why so many are just kind of discovering that now? What do you think the reason is for the?
Well, I think there's a number of reasons. I think people have a lot of questions. Life is very crazy and chaotic, especially right now, and I think that we're kind of seeking answers outside of the box. So tarot kind of provides that, basis of which to really go inward, because I'm a firm believer that all answers are found within. I've just always lived by that. It's just sometimes we have a little trouble uncovering it. So tarot opens that doorway or that gateway so that you can really, I think, get some perspective. But I also think that it's, it's more accessible now. There's so many decks out there that really appeal to different audiences that, you can easily find something that you can gravitate to that will speak to you. And I think it's just become something that it's easily accessible for a lot of people.
I agree. And I think this one will speak to so many, because just even beyond those who are into divination, cartomancy, and tarot. I love your mug, by the way. It's
Thank you.
And I think that Poe speaks to so many people on just as you're saying, an internal level, a visceral level. with the words, and just the overall themes and atmosphere that he created there. And so I think it's a perfect blending, really, of words and images. So really, what inspired you to pull that together? What was your main inspiration how did the idea germinate, or what really was that
I think, honestly, I had this in the back of my mind for many, many years, that Poe would make Poe and Thoreau would go really well together. But I didn't know how to really do it. I just knew that I wanted his words to be involved somehow. And when I think it was, honestly, Ed Gorey's Fantod deck that really was the first inspiration behind it. I had a copy, and I've had it, for as long as I can remember. And I thought, the artwork's so cool. And that actually was the second coming of this deck, because the first version really did not have much of myself in there as an artist. It was kind of like it had the quotes from Poe, but it was a different look altogether, which you guys rejected. And I laugh about it to this day, because actually I'm quite grateful for that, because it really forced me to kind of go back to the drawing board and look at it and go, well, if I could do anything, what would it be? And what would I want it to look like? And there was the Fantod deck. And it wasn't that I necessarily wanted to, make Ed Gorey's art, it was just an inspiration of going, I like this whimsical, macabre kind of look to it, the black and white. And that's kind of how it evolved from there. And I was also looking at Harry Clarke's work, the work that he did with Poe's stories, and they had that the black and white illustrations and the macabre, and I just loved the look of it.
Right, exactly. I read that you had those inspirations there, and it's good to have that. And I apologize for the original rejection there, but
no.
The creative process, it's really led to such a beautiful product overall. And what you keep mentioning here about the words there, each of these cards, this is the one that popped up here first, the Three of Paws. What are the suits again? Before I get it, the suits are their paws.
The paws, quills, candles. Why am I drawing? Wells. So ink wells, candles, quills, and paws. And the paws was an homage to Pluto, the cat in the Black Cat. Okay. So he makes a big appearance throughout the paws.
Yeah, so Pluto's in this little one here with the little wall. And things like that. But as I say, for each one, you chose a different phrase from one of the works there too. I can't imagine the amount of research that you have.
I that's why I'm wearing glasses.
You were before.
my eyesight kind of went.
Right.
Yeah. No. What happened with that was I really keeping the Rider-Waite-Smith in mind throughout. I would end up going through like all his stories, poems, letters, that kind of thing. Sometimes 3, 4, 5 times until I found, something would jump out at me. And obviously I had quotes that that were popular that I wanted to use. Quote the Raven nevermore, stuff like that. And I knew where I wanted to put that, but there were other times that I hadn't a clue what to put on the card. And it was just more, sometimes I think it was, just divine, whatever, it would just resonate and it would pop out. But that was the hardest part, was finding the quotes.
It's really interesting, and it makes each card just special and unique, and I think it really makes a reading that much more have that much more depth to it, because not only do you have interpretations, and the book has the great interpretations and keywords throughout here, but it's just enough here, but then you can take these phrases and use them as a added layer of understanding for each of these cards and how it blends together in different spreads and those kinds of things too. And you mentioned here in the intro that that Poe's your guide. He's your guide on the fool's journey, like an inner guide to the fool's
Yes.
journey. And yeah, it's a perfect kind of guide to take someone into those areas, maybe those areas that we're not always comfortable with examining too.
Mm-hmm.
We talk a lot about shadow work, those kinds of things. I wouldn't call this necessarily a shadow deck, actually.
Right.
And because there definitely are decks like that. I think this is very balanced,
Mm-hmm.
So it's not just like macabre or that kind of thing.
Sure. There's a lot of whimsy to it. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So because some are specifically made for that, and as you mentioned earlier, there's so many decks out there, and have different purposes.
Mm-hmm.
But this deck is, I think, really surprisingly balanced in that it has those shadow aspects if you want to use them. It has that whimsy to it as well. So the reader can pull out what they need from each individual reading as well, which I think is really brilliant. And I think it's a perfect marriage of the words and the images.
Thank you.
There too. No, of course, no, I truly believe that. So for yourself, like, what did you said that was the most difficult part, you didn't say hard or challenging necessarily. But what was the most fun about creating this deck? What did you enjoy most about it?
Oh, probably making Poe the subject matter. I mean, I don't mean just the subject matter of the deck. I mean, that's obvious, but making him actually follow the fool's journey. I mean, if you notice, as you go through the deck, there's about 20 images or more where he is the main subject. And I thought, and that kind of happened because I was drawing, I think it was the Emperor card. So that was the third card in. And I hadn't even really, I was kind of randomly picking cards to draw at that point. But I started working on the Emperor card, which is very different in style to the rest of the deck. And that was from, I think it's called a Durotype photograph of him. And that particular image, his eyes are so incredibly sad in that image. And I just kept looking at them as I was drawing it. And I kept thinking to myself, like him saying, tell my story, tell my story, tell me. And I just kept hearing this over and over, tell my story.
Interesting. Okay.
And I thought, who would he meet along the fool's journey? Which were the people in his stories, obviously, that he would be interacting with. And then I thought, well, what if he were a character throughout the deck? Which is kind of different because a lot of times, you might see, throughout a deck, all different images, and not necessarily the same character throughout. So he became sort of not just obviously the subject, but the star of it, moving through the fool's journey. I mean, he's the fool in the very beginning. So that, I think, was the most exciting part for me when that came to me, and I just went, oh yes, this is going to be great. Let's do it that way. So it was fun. That was fun.
No, I'm sure it was. And it's interesting how you mentioned that the calling, to you really. And I think there's a certain, this really is an easy deck, I think, to bond with, even those who aren't necessarily huge Poe fans. But I think just that there's, I think some people might look at Poe as some maybe a figure out there, whereas with this he's more of a figure that's in here, and that guide, and a character that's very endearing. I think maybe some people might not see him that way, but this really brings him in. It gives him a different level of humanity, almost. I think
because I think with Poe is everybody can relate to him in some sort of way. He had such a tragic life that I mean, we've all had our share of tragedy. So being able to, I think he just transcends time. Everybody can relate to him on some level.
Exactly. Exactly. So yeah, so that's really something that's very remarkable, about this, and that's why it goes kind of even beyond those who just have that interest in just that tarot or just Poe, and so to bring it all together. I love here too, with all of these two, and as the images and the words come together, how you actually have in the bibliography, where they come from. So if someone
Yes.
has a card here and pulls it and say, okay, well, what is that and where's it from? It goes, card by card, where each of those were from. So that again, someone can take this as a starting point to appreciate, what this is together. Then also too the greater body of work as well,
Right.
which I think was a great addition, to that as well. And I wanted definitely to make sure we highlighted that aspect of it. So. Very cool. So do you read tarot often then? Is that, do you?
Well, I wouldn't consider myself a professional reader by any stretch,
Okay.
but I have a small group on Facebook. It's a private group of people that have kind of been with me for several years, and I started teaching tarot in there, and then I do weekly and monthly readings. But now with the deck being released, I'm almost daily on Instagram doing daily and weekly readings with Poe Tarot. So yeah, it's become a thing now. Where I don't read so much for myself. I have a tough time doing that, to be honest. It's just too much of myself gets involved, and I have a little trouble. Sometimes I'll do it just for advice, but I like to, kind of read the energies for other people.
Yeah, I've heard different things from different readers, whether it's even wise to read for yourself, because you bring so much of yourself into it and those kinds of things. And so every reader is different. And it's funny how that grows, and now you're getting kind of, you're pulled along into this greater world here, with that as well. How do you decide, like, what do you then create next as an artist? I mean, you've created, many different things. You've been and it's hard to believe that you taught yourself, because I think that really there's just I don't know, I can't believe it.
Yes, I am self-taught. I went into professionally as an artist in 2004, but I'll tell you, I was terrible. And just because, it's like anything, if you do it every day, which
Yes.
I'm highly creative. I'm one of those people that if I'm not creating, it really bothers me.
Right.
So it's just practice makes perfect kind of. And I still feel like I'm always practicing. I'm always learning. I'm always discovering. But, I'd like to say the process is, I've got everything organized on whiteboards, and I'm manifesting in the ethers and whatnot. But it's really,
you can say that, really.
it's 1,000 sticky notes. It's like sticky note ideas everywhere. And then what'll happen is I kind of follow I follow my muse, wherever it takes me. That's what I work on. So for a while it might be artwork. Another time it might be writing. Another time it might be sculpting. It really just depends on what I feel like doing.
Okay, fascinating. So you sculpt as well? I
started as a sculptor.
Variety of mediums. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
A little bit of everything.
A little bit of everything. And what's your favorite medium? Right? Is it just the
well, I think I'll always, I love drawing. I love I like the ink drawing the best out of everything. I have worked with acrylics. I've worked with watercolors. I've all of that. So I think that actually just going back to drawing and inking is my favorite. And then probably my second favorite is writing. I love to write. I love, I have several dark fantasy novels under a pen, a different name. And I'm writing a book of poetry. So, it's a little bit of everything. I just like to dabble.
That's great. I think any artist really does. I mean, I know many artists, and it's hard to stick to one medium sometimes, because you never know where the muses are going to take you.
Well, I often find that when I get stuck, it helps to switch up and do something completely different, because then once you get to doing that, it often will inspire back to what you were first working on. That's what I've always found for me anyway.
It's funny how those connections happen, really. And you mentioned writing, and I'm seeing a lot more people actually use tarot for writing,
Yes.
writing inspiration, those
Yes.
kinds of things. And
I do it.
You do it, yeah. I'm not
Yes.
surprised by that.
I will do it for my writing. I'll sometimes I'll get a block and I'm not quite sure where to go, so I'll pull some cards to see where the character might end up or where it might go, and it does work. It totally works.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really amazing. Now you talk about artwork and different kinds of artistry. We're talking about then the arts of astrology a little bit earlier, which I know you're into that as well. And we had an interesting discussion right before we kind of went haywire with our own Mercury retrograde thing there. So what's our Mercury retrograde story? There's really actually a good story here.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, a lot of people don't like Mercury retrograde because things can go haywire, but it's kind of fascinating with the Pot Tarot because when I started working on it, I began working on it during a Mercury retrograde. Right. It was rejected the first time in Mercury retrograde, and then it was picked up, and then it was picked up again in a Mercury retrograde, and so here we are talking during Mercury retrograde. So I kind of feel like it's just meant to be during that time. It's almost like it just keeps coming back to that moment, and yeah, so it can be a good thing.
Yeah, ironically enough, it's a good thing, So here, the funny thing is like, so we were talking about that, right before we were supposed to start the program, and things went a little cuckoo, and then we were just talking about it again, and things went a little cuckoo. So I'm not going to bring it up again. That's it. That's it.
You're right.
That's it. I don't want to tempt fate anymore. So now with decks and things, I love to do readings. If you would indulge us here,
sure, I can. I could try. Sure.
Oh, okay, all right. So you what's that?
Were you going to do the reading, or am
I? No, I was going to presume to do a reading with your dad.
Okay. What would you like to know?
Oh my. I think what more. Let's make it more general, maybe a little broader. For the audience here, how about what will spring bring for people?
Or is spring around the corner? Well, I hate to do yes or no, so
no, not that.
I'm a firm believer. What do we need to know about?
What do we need to know about?
Yeah, it's to have those kind of questions. So let's just see what comes up with regards to spring. Okay, so this card's sticking up. All right, so I got the Ace of Paws.
Okay, Ace of Paws.
So that's fresh starts, new beginnings. Paws are the equivalent to the coins or the pentacles.
Yes.
Now, in terms of time frame, though, that is usually that's a really long stretch. So, I'm kind of thinking spring's going to come sooner because I know the snowdrops are coming up over like in Europe right now. And I always base it on that. As soon as you start seeing the snowdrops, that means spring is coming for us. But this is kind of with the pause. It might linger a little, maybe we'll have a long spring. I don't know. But, the fresh starts here with the ace could be right around the corner. It's entirely possible. That's what I'm hoping anyway.
That's what I'm hoping too.
Just gonna look at the quote here.
Yeah, I was about to read the quote.
For the most wild yet most homely narrative which I am myself to pen, I neither accept nor solicit belief. Well, I guess that's then a matter of opinion, right?
That's really a matter of opinion. That's awfully vague, Edgar.
Right? Let's get a clarifier on that. Let's get a clarifier card.
Yes, please do. Yes, that'd be great.
Let's get a clarifier on this Ace of Paws. Help me out here.
All right.
Help me out. Okay, this one's jumping out at me. All right, so I don't know, Chris. Okay, so we got the Six of Wells. So that's the cups. Okay. Maybe it's coming. Little while away, but let's see. It says, now our thoughts thou shalt not banish. Now our visions near to vanish. from thy spirit shall they pass, excuse me, no more like dewdrops from the grass. Okay, I'm going to take that as spring is coming soon.
Yes, dewdrops from the grass. There you go.
There we go. I'm taking that.
You can see the grass. You can see the dewdrops. It's perfect.
It's perfect.
Wonderful, wonderful. Actually, could you hold up the card there with the image?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm sorry, I didn't do that.
No, that's okay.
First was the Ace of Paws, and then the clarifier was the Six of Wells.
Wonderful. That's great.
See, I told you I wasn't a professional reader.
No. I mean, that's just like you wouldn't normally do that to a querent. Here, look at this. So you'd be laying it down. So, and then within the book here, it's just you have the image just on one side, and then the quote and
the insights. The
insights just right there. And as I mentioned, we have the bibliography in the back there, which all says where everything comes from. Very quick. Even when it was published too, and so you can actually see some of the progression of of his work and things, and it makes me want to dive more into Poe. I admit I am not a Poe aficionado, but I'm captivated by this and the artwork. What really got me is the artwork, to be honest, with this, and so just how it is, just so it's quirky, it's macabre, quirky. But it's I love art history in general and art in general, and so it really makes you want to dive more deeply, into the subject matter. So
right.
I admire what you've created here, and I'm thankful we're able to do it. And so all this comes together here with in a nice, pretty compact little package here.
Yeah. I love it. It's so sturdy and I love it.
Good. Me too.
I love the gilding.
We have our little scarlet gilding.
Yeah, that was something that I'm so glad we were able to get, because I just thought it would look so well with the black and white, and
I completely agree.
The blood of his stories.
No, it's just it all comes to it literally took my breath away when I saw it first. And so yeah. So what's coming up next really for you? I'm working with you guys on a deck called the Everglow, and that I believe might be slated for winter 2022, crossing fingers, but it's another tarot deck, this time a lot more color. It involves astrology and animal symbolism, and but it's its own system. It's kind of incorporates tarot and oracle along with numerology. It's a little mix of everything in there. So I'm excited about that, and of course I'm working on a couple other ideas. I've got an oracle deck in the back of my mind I'm working on, and another tarot, and I'm actually thinking of some more things with Poe. All right, great, wonderful. I'm excited to learn more about those, if you are so kind as to share them.
Of course. Of course.
I don't want to presume necessarily. So that's wonderful. So now, you mentioned Instagram and those kind of things. Are you on social media and people?
I'm all over the place.
All over the place.
I'm on Facebook. I have a group for the Poe Tarot, and it's called the Poe Tarot. There's a Facebook page for it. There's a group for it. Of course, I have Trisha Leigh, Art of Trisha Leigh, on Facebook. I've got an Instagram dedicated to the Poe Tarot. So I'm on, and a YouTube. I have a YouTube channel strictly for the Poe Tarot. So really, you can jump on there, and I'm very interactive with all of those social media. I won't ignore you. Basically, it's like I do interact with everybody, and appreciate their questions and comments and feedback. It's just been great.
That's great. I can really tell that you're enjoying the experience. You're enjoying throughout this how it's come to fruition, and the response to it, and all that, and I think this is really going to help people to really appreciate not just tarot, but Poe and what he has brought to literature and brought to poetry, to prose, and all that. And so I think it's really going to make a difference and make an impact for people. So,
yeah, and he's as relevant. Well, I can't say he's as relevant today as he used to be. Like back in his time, because he really wasn't as successful then.
Right, exactly.
But now, I think he's just got so much that people can relate to. As a matter of fact, I just heard Netflix was picking up a series based on that fall of the House of Usher. So, I mean, how cool is that?
That's really cool.
He has a sports team named after him.
Oh.
Baltimore Ravens. So, I mean, he's very, so much ingrained in the culture that I think that everybody can relate to him, and especially going through what we're going through now.
Exactly. Because and that's changed everything. We'll never quite be the same, after this. And but you really touched on something there about, I think, his motivation too. Somewhere in here, I can't put my finger on it, but about it doesn't seem like he wasn't really in it for the fame. He was in it for just the there's quote, the literature is the most noble calling. That you need to put that in here. So
I think he was just and it was, I think, also what he was living through.
Right.
He had so much, like I said, he had so much tragedy in his life that for him, the outlet to write and to put those feelings and emotions into his work, I think, were very important for him. I
completely agree, and I think this is a really a good, really just compartmentalization, and at once it's a bringing together and also a disseminating, of his work in a different way, in a new way, so it can be really appreciated by more and more people. So thank you for creating it. Thank you for bringing it to us.
Thank you for everything.
And thanks to everyone.
No, you guys.
So, wonderful. So this was a lot of fun. I really had a lot of fun doing this. Thanks for everyone who tuned in today. So you can get the Poe Tarot on redfeathernbs.com, at Mind by Spirit stores, trade stores all over the place, Amazon, wherever you want to get it, you can get it. So thanks for tuning in, and have a beautiful rest of the day, everybody. Take care now.
Thank you. Thank you, Chris. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.